You wake up, you eat what you think is a healthy breakfast, and then an hour later, you feel tired, foggy, maybe even hungrier than before you ate. Sound familiar? You check your blood sugar and it's spiked way higher than you wanted. Or you just feel that crash coming on, and you know something isn't right. You're doing everything the guidelines tell you to do, but your blood sugar is still all over the place, and you're wondering what you're missing. I'm Dr. Michael Stevens, a nutritionist who helps people balance their blood sugar, improve their metabolic health, and understand their bodies on a deeper level. In my last video, I talked about the worst foods that spike your insulin and why they're keeping you stuck in that blood sugar roller coaster. Today, I want to flip the script and show you exactly what you should be eating instead. We're going to talk about 4 specific breakfasts that can actually help lower your blood sugar and keep your insulin in check. And more importantly, I'm going to explain why they work, so you're not just following another list of rules without understanding what's happening inside your body. Here's the biggest misconception I see all the time. People think that lowering blood sugar is just about avoiding sugar and carbs. They go out and buy sugar-free this and low-carb that, and they think they're winning. But then their blood sugar is still elevated, they're still gaining weight around their middle, and they're frustrated because they're doing what they were told. The problem is that blood sugar management isn't just about what you remove from your diet. It's about what you add, how you combine things, and when you eat them. Your body is way more complex than just a simple carb calculator. Let me explain what's really happening when you eat breakfast. When food hits your digestive system, it gets broken down into its component parts. Carbohydrates turn into glucose, which is sugar in your blood. Now, glucose isn't bad. Your brain runs on glucose. Your muscles need glucose. But the problem happens when too much glucose floods your bloodstream all at once. Think of it like a river. A steady flow of water is perfect. It nourishes everything downstream. But a flash flood? That's destructive. That's what happens when you eat a big bowl of cereal, or a stack of pancakes, or even a smoothie loaded with fruit. You get a flood of glucose. When your blood sugar spikes like that, your pancreas has to respond by pumping out insulin. Insulin is like a key that unlocks your cells, so glucose can get inside and be used for energy. But here's the thing. When you constantly spike your blood sugar and constantly need high amounts of insulin, a few things start to go wrong. First, your cells start to become resistant to insulin. They've seen this key so many times that they stop responding to it as effectively. This is called insulin resistance, and it's the root cause of type 2 diabetes. But it's also connected to weight gain, inflammation, hormonal imbalances, and even brain fog. Second, when insulin is high, your body is in storage mode, not burning mode. Insulin tells your body to store energy as fat, especially around your belly. So even if you're eating fewer calories, if your insulin is constantly elevated, you're going to have a really hard time losing weight. And third, after that spike comes the crash. Your blood sugar drops, sometimes too low, and that's when you feel tired, irritable, shaky, and desperately craving more carbs to bring it back up. It's a vicious cycle. So the goal with breakfast isn't just to avoid sugar. The goal is to create a meal that provides steady energy, keeps your insulin levels low and stable, and actually helps your body become more sensitive to insulin over time. And the way we do that is by understanding 4 key factors that determine how your breakfast affects your blood sugar. These are protein, fiber, healthy fats, and something called the glycemic load of your meal. Let's start with protein. Protein is probably the most important thing you can add to your breakfast if you're trying to manage your blood sugar. Here's why. Protein takes longer to digest than carbohydrates, which means it slows down the release of glucose into your bloodstream. It's like putting a time release mechanism on your meal. Instead of that flash flood, you get the steady trickle. But protein does something else that's really important. It stimulates the release of hormones that make you feel full and satisfied. Hormones like GLP-1 and peptide YY, which tell your brain that you've had enough to eat. This is why a high-protein breakfast keeps you full for hours, while a carb-heavy breakfast leaves you hungry again in an hour. But there's more. Protein also has what's called a high thermic effect. That means your body burns more calories just digesting protein than it does digesting carbs or fat. About 25 to 30% of the calories in protein are used up just in the process of breaking it down and absorbing it. So not only does protein keep your blood sugar stable, it also supports your metabolism and helps you maintain or build lean muscle mass, which is crucial for insulin sensitivity. The more muscle you have, the more places your body has to store glucose, which means less of it floating around in your blood, causing problems. How much protein should you be aiming for at breakfast? I generally recommend at least 25 to 30 grams, and ideally closer to 35 or 40 grams if you're really trying to optimize your blood sugar control. That might sound like a lot if you're used to having toast and jam or a bowl of oatmeal, but it's actually pretty easy to hit once you know what to look for. 3 eggs give you about 18 grams. Add in some Greek yogurt or cottage cheese, and you're easily over 30 grams. Or you could have a serving of smoked salmon, some turkey sausage, or even leftovers from dinner, if that's your thing. The point is, protein needs to be the foundation of your breakfast, not an afterthought. Now let's talk about fiber. Fiber is like the unsung hero of blood sugar control, and most people are not getting nearly enough of it. There are 2 types of fiber, soluble and insoluble, and both are important. But for blood sugar management, soluble fiber is especially powerful. Soluble fiber dissolves in water and forms a gel-like substance in your gut. This gel slows down the absorption of glucose, which means even if you do eat some carbs at breakfast, the fiber is going to blunt that blood sugar spike. It's like putting a buffer between your food and your bloodstream. But fiber does more than just slow things down. It also feeds the good bacteria in your gut, and those bacteria produce short-chain fatty acids like butyrate, which have been shown to improve insulin sensitivity and reduce inflammation. Your gut health and your blood sugar control are deeply connected, and fiber is the bridge between the two. People who eat high-fiber diets consistently have better blood sugar control, lower insulin levels, and a reduced risk of type 2 diabetes. And yet most people are only getting about 15 grams of fiber a day, when they should be getting closer to 30 or 35 grams. At breakfast, you want to aim for at least 8 to 10 grams of fiber. That might mean adding some chia seeds or ground flaxseed to your yogurt, throwing a handful of spinach or kale into your eggs, or having some berries on the side. Berries are actually one of the best fruits you can eat for blood sugar control because they're lower in sugar and higher in fiber than most other fruits. A cup of raspberries has 8 grams of fiber. A cup of blackberries has about the same. Compare that to a banana, which has about 3 grams of fiber and a lot more sugar, and you can see why the type of fruit matters. Vegetables are another great source of fiber at breakfast. And I know that sounds weird to some people, because we've been conditioned to think of breakfast as sweet foods. But in many cultures around the world, vegetables at breakfast are totally normal. And honestly, if you want to control your blood sugar, you need to start thinking of vegetables as a breakfast food. Avocado is an obvious one. It's got about 10 grams of fiber in a whole avocado. Plus, it's loaded with healthy fats, which we're going to talk about next. But you can also saute some peppers and onions. Add some mushrooms. Throw in some zucchini, or even have a side of sauerkraut or kimchi if you're into fermented foods. All of these add fiber, nutrients, and volume to your meal without adding a lot of calories or carbs. Healthy fats are the third piece of the puzzle. For a long time, people were told to avoid fat, especially at breakfast. The thinking was that fat makes you fat and clogs your arteries and all that. But we now know that's not true, at least not when we're talking about the right kinds of fats. Healthy fats, the kind you get from foods like avocados, nuts, seeds, olive oil, and fatty fish, are actually incredible for blood sugar control. Here's why. Fat, like protein, slows down digestion. When you eat fat with carbohydrates, it reduces the glycemic response of that meal. It keeps your blood sugar from spiking. Fat also doesn't trigger an insulin response on its own, which means it helps keep your overall insulin levels lower. But beyond that, fat is what makes food satisfying. It's what gives you that feeling of being full and content after a meal. Without fat, meals can feel unsatisfying, and that's when you start reaching for snacks an hour later. And just like protein, fat supports your hormones. Many of your hormones, including your sex hormones and your stress hormones, are made from cholesterol and fat. If you're not eating enough fat, especially if you're a woman, you might start to see issues with your menstrual cycle, your energy levels, and your ability to manage stress. So what does this look like at breakfast? It means not being afraid to add a tablespoon of olive oil to your eggs, or cooking your vegetables in butter or ghee. It means choosing full-fat Greek yogurt instead of the low-fat version that's loaded with added sugar to make up for the lack of flavor. It means adding a quarter of an avocado to your plate, or sprinkling some nuts and seeds on top of whatever you're eating. Walnuts, almonds, chia seeds, hemp seeds, all of these are great options. And if you're having fish, something like smoked salmon is not only high in protein, it's also rich in omega-3 fatty acids, which are anti-inflammatory and great for your brain and your heart. One thing I want to be clear about though, when I say healthy fats, I'm not talking about vegetable oils or seed oils, or the kind of fat you get in processed foods. I'm talking about whole food sources of fat. There's a big difference between eating an avocado and eating something fried in soybean oil. The former is going to support your health. The latter is going to promote inflammation and mess with your metabolism. So be mindful of where your fats are coming from. Now, let's talk about the glycemic load of your meal. You've probably heard of the glycemic index, which is a measure of how quickly a food raises your blood sugar. High glycemic index foods, like white bread and candy, cause rapid spikes. Low glycemic index foods, like lentils and non-starchy vegetables, cause a much slower, gentler rise. But the glycemic index only tells you part of the story because it doesn't account for portion size. That's where glycemic load comes in. Glycemic load takes into account both the quality of the carbs and the quantity. It's a more useful measure for real-world eating. The goal is to keep the glycemic load of your breakfast low, and you do that by choosing foods that are either low in carbs to begin with, or by eating them in combination with protein, fiber, and fat, which lowers the overall glycemic load of the meal. This is why you can't just look at one food in isolation. It's about how you combine things. For example, if you eat a piece of toast by itself, that's going to spike your blood sugar. But if you eat that same piece of toast with 2 scrambled eggs, some avocado, and a handful of spinach, the impact on your blood sugar is going to be much smaller because the protein, fat, and fiber in the rest of the meal are buffering that carbohydrate. This is why the breakfasts I'm about to show you work so well. They're all designed to be low glycemic load meals that combine protein, fiber, and fat in the right ratios. They're not about deprivation or cutting out entire food groups. They're about building balanced meals that support your blood sugar and keep you feeling good all morning long. So let's get into the 4 breakfasts. These are meals I recommend to my clients all the time, and they're meals I eat myself. They're simple, they're delicious, and they're backed by the science we just talked about. You don't need to follow a complicated recipe or buy a bunch of weird ingredients. You just need to understand the principles and then build your breakfast around them. Breakfast number 1 is what I call the protein-packed veggie scramble. This is as simple as it sounds. You take 2 or 3 whole eggs and you scramble them with a bunch of non-starchy vegetables. I'm talking spinach, kale, bell peppers, onions, mushrooms, tomatoes, zucchini, whatever you like. You cook everything in a little bit of olive oil or butter, and you season it with salt, pepper, maybe some garlic powder or some fresh herbs. Then you serve it with half an avocado on the side. That's it. Let's break down why this works. 3 eggs give you about 18 grams of protein. The vegetables add fiber, vitamins, minerals, and volume without adding a lot of calories or carbs. The avocado gives you healthy fats and more fiber. And because there are essentially no high glycemic carbs in this meal, your blood sugar is going to stay rock solid. I've had clients tell me that after eating this breakfast, they don't even think about food again until lunchtime. And that's because the combination of protein and fat is so satiating. You can also jazz this up in different ways. Add some feta cheese or goat cheese for extra flavor and a little more fat. Throw in some fresh salsa or hot sauce if you like things spicy. Or cook the eggs in some coconut oil and add some curry powder for a different flavor profile. The point is, this is a template you can customize based on what you like and what you have on hand. And if you're worried about cholesterol from eating eggs every day, don't be. The research is very clear that for most people, dietary cholesterol has very little impact on blood cholesterol levels. Eggs are one of the most nutrient-dense foods on the planet, and they should be a staple in your diet if you're trying to manage your blood sugar. Breakfast number 2 is Greek yogurt with nuts, seeds, and berries, but not just any Greek yogurt. You want to make sure you're getting full-fat, plain Greek yogurt with no added sugar. A lot of the flavored yogurts, even the ones marketed as healthy, are loaded with sugar. We're talking 10, 15, sometimes even 20 grams of added sugar per serving. That's basically dessert, not breakfast. So stick with plain and add your own toppings. Here's what you do. Take about 1 cup of full-fat Greek yogurt. That's going to give you around 15 to 20 grams of protein, depending on the brand. Then you add a tablespoon of chia seeds and a tablespoon of ground flax seed. That adds fiber, omega-3 fats, and some extra protein. Then you add a 1/4 cup of mixed berries, which could be blueberries, raspberries, strawberries, or blackberries. Berries are low in sugar compared to other fruits, and they're high in antioxidants and fiber. Finally, you add a small handful of nuts. Walnuts, almonds, or pecans all work great. You could also add a drizzle of almond butter or a sprinkle of unsweetened coconut flakes if you want. This breakfast is powerful because it's hitting all the marks we talked about. You've got protein from the yogurt, fiber from the seeds and berries, and healthy fats from the nuts and seeds. The glycemic load is low because the carbs from the berries are being buffered by everything else in the bowl. And it's quick. You can throw this together in 2 minutes, which makes it perfect for busy mornings. One tip I'll give you is to let the chia seeds sit in the yogurt for a few minutes before you eat it. They'll absorb some of the liquid and create this pudding-like texture that's really satisfying. Some people like to prep this the night before and let it sit in the fridge overnight, which works great too. You can make a few servings at once and have grab-and-go breakfasts ready for the week. Breakfast number 3 is smoked salmon with avocado and a side of sautéed greens. This one is a little more gourmet, but it's honestly just as easy as the others. You take about 3 or 4 ounces of smoked salmon, which is going to give you around 20 grams of protein, plus a good dose of omega-3 fatty acids. You pair that with half an avocado, either sliced on the side or mashed up like guacamole. And then you sauté a big handful of greens, like spinach or kale, in a little bit of olive oil with some garlic. If you want, you can also add a couple of eggs to this meal. Some people like to have smoked salmon with scrambled eggs or a poached egg on top. That bumps up the protein even more and makes it even more filling. You could also serve this with a slice of whole grain or sourdough toast if you want a little bit of carbs, but make sure it's real sourdough, the kind that's been fermented, because the fermentation process breaks down some of the starches and lowers the glycemic impact. And keep it to 1 slice, not 2 or 3. This breakfast is fantastic for blood sugar control because it's almost entirely protein and fat with a ton of fiber from the greens and the avocado. The smoked salmon is also really rich and flavorful, so a little bit goes a long way. It feels like a treat, but it's actually one of the healthiest things you can eat. And because fatty fish like salmon are so high in omega-3s, you're also getting anti-inflammatory benefits that support your brain, your heart, and your overall metabolic health. One thing to watch out for with smoked salmon is the sodium content. Some brands are saltier than others, so if you're sensitive to salt or you're dealing with high blood pressure, just look for a lower sodium version or balance it out by drinking plenty of water and eating lots of potassium-rich foods like avocado and greens. Breakfast number 4 is a smoothie, but not the kind of smoothie most people make. Most smoothies are basically liquid sugar. They're loaded with fruit juice, bananas, honey, and all kinds of sweeteners, and they spike your blood sugar just as much as a soda would. But a properly made smoothie can actually be a great blood sugar-friendly breakfast if you build it the right way. Here's the formula. You start with a protein base. That could be a scoop of high-quality protein powder, ideally whey or collagen, or a plant-based protein that doesn't have a bunch of added sugar. You want at least 25 to 30 grams of protein in your smoothie. Then you add healthy fats. A tablespoon of almond butter, a quarter of an avocado, or a tablespoon of coconut oil all work great. Then you add fiber. A tablespoon of chia seeds or ground flaxseed, a handful of spinach or kale, and maybe some frozen cauliflower if you want extra volume and creaminess without adding sugar. Then, and only then, do you add a small amount of fruit. I'm talking half a cup of berries, max. Not a whole banana, not a cup of pineapple, not fruit juice, just a small amount of low-sugar fruit for flavor. Then, you blend it all up with some unsweetened almond milk or coconut milk and some ice. You can also add cinnamon, which has been shown to improve insulin sensitivity, or a little bit of vanilla extract for flavor. What you end up with is a thick, creamy, satisfying smoothie that's loaded with protein, fiber, and healthy fats, and has very little sugar. It's going to keep your blood sugar stable and keep you full for hours. And because it's blended, it's easy to digest, which makes it a great option if you're someone who doesn't have a big appetite in the morning, or if you're working out first thing and need something quick. One mistake people make with smoothies is drinking them too fast. Because it's liquid, it's easy to chug it down in 2 minutes, and that can sometimes cause a quicker spike in blood sugar than eating a solid meal would. So take your time, sip it slowly over the course of 15 or 20 minutes. Or better yet, eat it with a spoon, like a smoothie bowl. That way you're engaging your digestive system more fully and giving your body time to register that you're eating. So those are the 4 breakfasts: the veggie scramble, the Greek yogurt bowl, the smoked salmon with greens, and the low-sugar protein smoothie. Each one is built on the principles of high protein, high fiber, healthy fats, and low glycemic load. And each one is going to keep your blood sugar stable and your insulin low, which is exactly what you want if you're trying to improve your metabolic health. But knowing what to eat is only half the battle. You also need to know how to eat, and that's where the action plan comes in. These are the steps you can start implementing right away to take control of your blood sugar and make these breakfasts work even better for you. Step 1. Eat breakfast within 1 to 2 hours of waking up. I know intermittent fasting is popular right now, and for some people, it works great. But for others, especially people who are dealing with insulin resistance or blood sugar issues, skipping breakfast can actually make things worse. When you wake up, your cortisol levels are naturally high because that's what helps you get out of bed and start your day. Cortisol raises your blood sugar, and if you don't eat anything, your blood sugar can stay elevated for hours. Then when you finally do eat, you're so hungry that you overeat and spike your blood sugar even more. For most people, eating a balanced breakfast helps stabilize blood sugar for the entire day. Step 2. Prioritize protein first. When you sit down to eat your breakfast, eat the protein first before anything else. Studies have shown that eating protein before carbohydrates can significantly reduce the post-meal blood sugar spike. It's called food sequencing, and it's a simple trick that makes a big difference. So if you're having eggs and toast, eat the eggs first. If you're having yogurt and berries, eat some of the yogurt before you add the berries. It sounds like a small thing, but it matters. Step 3. Don't drink your calories unless it's a properly made smoothie like the one I described. Fruit juice, sweetened coffee drinks, even milk can spike your blood sugar because they're absorbed so quickly. Stick with water, black coffee, or unsweetened tea with your breakfast. If you want to add something to your coffee, use a splash of heavy cream or unsweetened almond milk, not sugar or flavored syrups. And if you're someone who loves their morning latte, make sure it's made with whole milk, not skim, and skip the added sweeteners. Step 4. Move after you eat. Even just a 10 or 15-minute walk after breakfast can lower your blood sugar by 20 to 30%. When you move, your muscles use glucose for energy, which pulls it out of your bloodstream. You don't have to do anything intense. Just a gentle walk around the block is enough. If you can't go outside, do some light stretching, march in place, or do some squats and lunges in your living room. Movement is one of the most powerful tools you have for blood sugar control, and it's completely free. Step 5. Pay attention to portion sizes, especially with carbs. Even healthy carbs like oatmeal or whole grain bread can spike your blood sugar if you eat too much of them. A good rule of thumb is to keep your carb portion at breakfast to about 15 to 30 grams of total carbohydrates, and make sure those carbs are coming from high fiber sources like berries, vegetables, or small amounts of whole grains. If you're eating one of the breakfasts I described, you're probably already in that range, but it's something to be aware of. Step 6. Stay consistent. Your body loves routine, especially when it comes to blood sugar. If you eat breakfast at the same time every day and you eat similar types of foods, your body gets better at regulating your blood sugar. It knows what to expect and can prepare accordingly. That doesn't mean you have to eat the exact same thing every single day, but having a rotation of 3 or 4 go-to breakfasts that you cycle through is a smart strategy. Step 7. Test and track if you can. If you have access to a continuous glucose monitor, or even just a regular glucometer, use it. Check your blood sugar before you eat, and then 1 or 2 hours after you eat. That will tell you exactly how your body is responding to different foods. Everyone is a little bit different, and what works for one person might not work for another. Some people can handle a little bit of oatmeal just fine, while others spike like crazy. The only way to know for sure is to test. And if you don't have a glucose monitor, pay attention to how you feel. If you're tired, foggy, or hungry an hour after eating, that's a sign that your blood sugar spiked and crashed. If you're energized and satisfied for 3 or 4 hours, you nailed it. Look, I know this is a lot of information, and I know it can feel overwhelming if you're used to eating cereal or toast or a muffin for breakfast. Changing your habits is hard, especially when it comes to food. Food is emotional. It's tied to your childhood, your culture, your comfort. I get it. But here's the thing. Your blood sugar and your insulin levels are affecting every single cell in your body. They're affecting your energy, your mood, your weight, your sleep, your hormones, your risk of chronic disease. This isn't just about vanity or fitting into your genes. This is about your long-term health and your quality of life. And the good news is, once you start eating this way, it gets easier. Your taste buds adapt. Your cravings change. You start to actually crave the foods that make you feel good instead of the foods that make you feel like garbage. I've seen it happen with hundreds of clients. People who thought they could never give up their bagel or their orange juice or their sugary granola, and then 6 weeks later, they're telling me they don't even want that stuff anymore because they feel so much better without it. Your body wants to be healthy. It wants to have stable blood sugar and low inflammation and good energy. You just have to give it the right tools. And these 4 breakfasts are some of the best tools you have. They're not complicated. They're not expensive. They're not weird or restrictive. They're just real whole foods, combined in a way that supports your biology. So start with 1. Pick the breakfast that sounds the most appealing to you and try it for a week. See how you feel. Notice your energy levels. Notice your cravings. Notice how long you stay full. And then, if it's working, keep going. Add in another one of these breakfasts. Start moving after you eat. Start paying attention to your portion sizes. Little by little, you'll build a routine that works for you, and your blood sugar will thank you. I also want to mention that breakfast is just one piece of the puzzle. What you eat for lunch and dinner matters too. How much you sleep matters. How much stress you're under matters. How much you move throughout the day matters. But breakfast is a great place to start because it sets the tone for your entire day. When you start your day with a blood sugar spike, you're fighting an uphill battle all day long. But when you start your day with stable blood sugar, everything else gets easier. If you want to learn more about the other meals you should be eating to keep your blood sugar stable, I did a whole video on the best lunches and dinners for blood sugar control, and I'll link that at the end of this video. I also have a video on the worst foods that spike your insulin, which is a great companion to this one, because it helps you understand what to avoid and why. And if you're dealing with insulin resistance or pre-diabetes or type 2 diabetes, I have a whole series of videos that go deeper into the science and give you a comprehensive plan for reversing those conditions. But for now, just focus on breakfast. Make it a priority. Give your body the protein, the fiber, and the healthy fats it needs. Skip the sugar and the refined carbs, and watch what happens. Your energy will improve. Your cravings will decrease. Your weight will start to normalize, and your blood sugar will stabilize. It's not magic. It's just biology. And once you understand how your body works, you can work with it instead of against it. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.